On the same theme, look, even business interests are now saying the housing and homelessness crisis is a major barrier to economic development or competitiveness, if you want to put it in those terms. And you justified what I believe to be the cruel and shameful decision to allow more families, individuals, children be evicted into homelessness over the coming months on the basis you were going to do other things, namely ramp up the purchase of homes where people were threatened with eviction. I got an interesting email yesterday, Taoiseach, from a landlord who has to sell his property for financial reasons, but doesn't want, in my area, this would interest you as well, Oireachtas, who doesn't want to evict his tenant. He approached Dún Laoghaire and said, I don't want to evict my tenant, will you buy the property? Dún Laoghaire said, have you issued the tenant with a notice to quit? He said, no, I don't want to evict my tenant, I want you to buy the property. They said, oh, if you're not threatening to evict the tenant, we're not buying the house. Now, this is typical of what's going on at the moment. It's the computer says nah, right, with government schemes. And it's similar to the issue I raised with you yesterday of the family who are over the income threshold, therefore they're not eligible for the purchase in situ scheme, who are very, yes, you mentioned particular circumstances. There are particular circumstances, but let me make it clear, they will be homeless. A family, right? Now, what I think you could do, Taoiseach, if you're not going to, and you should, maintain the eviction ban, could you please tell local authorities to have a human, flexible, explore all options approach to preventing people being made homeless, and not you don't tick the box of a particular inadequate government scheme, therefore we're not going to do anything for you, right? That has to change urgently, and this example, I think, demonstrates the point.
As deputies will know, I meet people who are investors or business people or employers all the time. Of course, housing, infrastructure are issues that they raise. They also say to me that these are the same problems they often experience where they're headquartered, whether it's in London or San Francisco or New York or Lisbon or other parts of the world where they're also experiencing a housing shortage. Housing can be a constraint on economic growth, and certainly the housing situation is making it harder to recruit and retain staff. But we should put that into a factual context. There are now 2.57 million people at work in Ireland, more than ever before. Unemployment is about 4%, it's close to an all-time low. Youth unemployment is at an all-time low. Last year was a record year for investment and for FDI jobs announcements in Ireland. Tens of thousands of people come to Ireland every year in order to take up employment, many more than leave. So certainly from an employment and economic growth point of view, I think we're doing pretty well. And notwithstanding the housing crisis, which is perhaps holding us back from doing even better. In response to Deputy Crow's question, I do know that some employers are providing accommodation for their staff. That isn't something new. It's been very common in the hospitality sector and the agri-food sector for a long time. I don't think it's the solution to the housing crisis, but if they're doing so and willing to do so, that's certainly not unwelcome. I was asked about the recommendations of the report and how we're going to implement them. The report identifies a range of recommendations that focus on both immediate competitiveness issues and more medium-term challenges aimed at enhancing our competitiveness and productivity. There are 20 tangible, actionable policy recommendations under 5 main headings. These are immediate issues facing the Irish economy, with the focus on our response to inflation and making sure that we don't exacerbate or embed inflationary pressures, and the importance of targeting assistance and productive spending. The second was the need to boost broad-based productivity growth, with a focus on ensuring it is a broad-based approach as possible. Productivity is the engine of economic growth in the longer term, and as such is crucial to improvements in living standards associated with growing and sustainable wage levels, good public services and improved well-being. And it is interesting to see the report from the Central Bank there the other day suggesting that we'll see incomes grow by in and around 6% or more this year. Not quite the rate of inflation. In fact, that probably will be higher than the rate of inflation for the year. Hasn't happened yet, but the Central Bank is certainly predicting that we will see a return to what we saw for a long time, last year being an exception, incomes growing faster than inflation. Won't be true for all people, but will be true for most people, and that's good if it happens, but it hasn't happened yet. The other area was enhancing labour market performance, achieved by fostering skills and participation, while ensuring that the gains from productivity growth are broadly shared with workers and that non-wage labour costs are kept down, assisting infrastructure investment for a better future, including housing, and also managing the costs of doing business. In terms of our response, as I said earlier, my department coordinates the response, and in the vast majority of cases, substantive actions are underway to deal with the points raised by the Council. The work is being undertaken by individual departments as part of their ongoing work. Deputy Durkin was asking specifically about how we're boosting productivity in line with the recommendations. The Council made several recommendations on how the Government could boost productivity, including the full implementation of the Harnessing Digital Strategy, the implementation of Impact 2030, as well as focusing on the importance of ensuring that the twin transitions, digital and green, are adequately and appropriately reinforced. The Harnessing Digital Strategy was launched last February 22 that is, and sets out a pathway to drive and enable the digital transition across the economy and society. There are annual reports on progress published by my department. And when it comes to Impact 2030, which is our research and innovation strategy, that was launched back in May. The Impact 2030 Steering Group and Implementation Forum, both chaired by the Department of Further Higher and Education, Research, Innovation and Science, are in place and will oversee this strategy. The Implementation Forum will report annually. The first such progress report for 2022 will be produced in this quarter, and the Government agrees with the Council on the importance of the digital and green transitions, and this is being assisted through the Green Transition Fund, the Harnessing Digital Strategy and also the Digital Transition Fund.